Let's talk about NAB 2025, the trends I have seen over the past 3 years, and some of the noteworthy product that I like to share with you from this show. Let's jump right in. I'm Artisright. So I'm filming this in the studio right now using a normal lens. However, the B-roll footage you're going to see were filmed on a Sony ZV-E1 set to active stabilization. That is a full frame compact camera that can work for both photos and videos, but it's really, I'm using that more for video. The lens that I have mount on there though is very interesting. So the camera's full frame, but the lens I have mount on there is the Z-Ray newest 20mm t1.8 anamorphic autofocus lens. And I think that works out really well because I can also get fairly close to an object, 1.5 to like 2 feet or so. I can get really close to an object, I can film with that, and it has autofocus, which works out really well. So everything you're gonna see is filmed with that lens. You're going to get all these flares and the footage has been de-squeezed. That lens was purchased out of my own money. They didn't send it for me to do a review or anything like that, but I just thought it'd be interesting to film with that, and I really enjoy using that lens. And the other thing too, as I mentioned already, that's an APS-C lens, but mounted on a full frame camera, it tends to work out pretty well, especially with active stabilization, because I'm just hand holding my camera. There's no gimbal, no tripod or anything like that. The other thing you're going to note too is that some of the footage that I'm moving around, you're going to see some of that wobbling effect a little bit. That's coming from the anamorphic lens more so than the stabilization itself. So anyway, let's talk about NAB 2025. All right, some of the trends that I've seen this time around that's very different than the previous 2 years is 2 years ago, we have seen a lot of virtual production. And when I say virtual production, I'm not talking about AR wall or anything like that. I'm talking about just literally green screen, where you hold an iPad up and you can see exactly where the actors and where they're going to be and so forth in an environment that does not exist. And the scene itself is rendered with Unreal Engine. That's still around this time at the show, but we don't see that as much anymore this time around. What we do see though in this time around is a lot more of the LED panel that can work as a backlight or a VR wall type of production. We see a lot more of that now being featured at the show. And the other thing that I think being overly done at any type of trade show right now is just pretty much AI. Like if we can throw the word AI into a conversation, we're going to throw that in there. And there's just so many things that involve that. Don't get me wrong, it is a really great tool, but every company is really leaning into AI extremely hard now with many of their products that are coming out. So that has been the trend that I've been noticing at this year NAB. Now, whether we have reached peak AI or not, I really hope so. And let's come up with another buzzword or something like that. But AI was around last year, but it wasn't quite to the extent that we've seen this year, where everything is almost like AI. So that's probably the last time, or hopefully the last time I'll mention that in the video. So there are many editing companies out there. The big ones are all out there. For example, Blackmagic, Avid. You also got Adobe that are showing their software and how to edit. Adobe also had a community event where they're talking about new features in Premiere Pro, which I thought was really cool. And that's one of the software that I dabble on every now and then. I also play with Resolve a little bit too. So you get to see all those. Resolve, they actually brought out like the big guns. For example, someone that I know, Joey, was there talking about how to color grade in Resolve, and I was able to play with the color wheel for color editing, because when you have those color wheels there, those three, you can really do some type of color grading that you would not be able just to do with your mouse, just like click, drag, and so forth, because you can do two simultaneously at any given time. I mean, like, that is just really cool. Personally, I really enjoy using that a lot, and I might even get like a mini one to incorporate into my workflow for color grading. The other thing that I've seen is that there are many data storage companies out there, from memory cards to drives to even just tape storage. And I'm glad that there are a tape storage company out there. Predominantly, there's two that I really want to point out is called Maxtor. They made the reader for the actual tape. And the other one that I've seen that's just coming out with a new product is OWC. They have built a network tape drive reader, so you can store and archive things on a tape and also still access those information. I think tape storage is very interesting. I like to see more of it. The problem with tape storage is the hardware, the initial hardware cost to get in is rather expensive. It's usually anywhere between $4,000 to like $5,000 just for the reader alone. The cartridge itself is not too bad. For example, I believe an 18 terabyte cartridge is under $100, which is actually much cheaper than a hard drive at that point. But it's actually just getting the hardware and the infrastructure to use those tape drive are fairly costly. For larger corporations, for bigger companies to need to archive product at a time, I think it makes sense. For me, I'm getting to a point now where I'm considering it, but I'm really not there yet because I'm not producing quite as much footage, right? I'm pretty much in the range where it can tip either way. I can spend more money on a NAS and populate that with like 8 drive in large capacity. I'm still good to go. So I don't really need the tape drive in that capacity at this point, but it is something to note. And right now we're currently in like the LTO9. There's like an LTO10 technology that's coming out that has greater density because the material on the tape is all different. They were showing some of the enterprise solution with like all these rack that does everything automatic. I think it's just really cool to see those technology. Personally, for me as a geek, that was really awesome. So one of the NAS companies that I want to call out about is Ugreen. They were showing their NAS. In fact, they're announcing, or they have announced at CES, their new AI NAS, which is supposed to be able to not just only do index searching, it's in a smart way and index your file, but it also does the LLM pretty much on the device, so you don't have to run these large language model on another server or something. So when they announced that NAS, I'm planning to get one into the studio and run some tests and some review of that, not only just for data storage, but for indexing that goes a little bit more beyond just what normal indexing can do, and because it has some smart and AI capability, but also play around with LLM on their future NAS that are coming out as well. Other than that, what I've also seen in storage technology is Seagate. And one of the big things that they have is their Mosaic 3, which pretty much just heat the tip up so that it becomes a plasma. So you heat pretty much just that at instant the disk itself, so that when you store the bit using that heat, it doesn't flip because your bits now are really just so dense to each other. And they have just announced, I believe, like a 30 terabyte Exos drive that has this Mosaic 3 technology. It's not available to us consumer yet. It's in the data center, but to me, that I think is a really great technology. I also got a chance to speak with OWC, MacSales.com CEO Larry O'Connor, which is really great because you get a chance to see how like excited he is about the product lineup, the Thunderbolt 5, how they're integrating all these custom solutions for users out there, from pretty much just consumers to the high-end pros out there that are using their product, their storage technology. So that was a really great conversation I had with him, and I want to thank him for his time. Other than that, we see a lot of what we've seen at these shows normally is tripod, is grip, is lighting equipment. Aramon have lights that can be easily clip on and off. It can run off USB-C power. They're pretty much just LED light panel. They thought about that really well. The other thing that I've also seen is Nanlite releasing, I'm pretty sure there was many other products, but they released these tube lights that can pretty much be plugged into USB-C. It now has a stronger magnet, and they release this in a case that has 8 of them. And when you have that light in the case, it actually shows how high of a charge state they are by just the green light showing on LED. I mean, that is really cool. And their LED can loop colors and like rainbows and everything. It's actually really neat. So I'm in talk with Nanlite right now to get some of the products to review and maybe also get their lights to pretty much power my studio too. So that's something that is in conversation right now. The other thing that I see with a lot of these lighting companies is that they're now releasing softbox, but they're the newer type. The one that I have been showing on my channel by SMDV, something very similar to those iterations. All the different company has it. I know Nanlite has it, I know Aramon has it, and I'm sure there's other companies that have it too. And they're pretty much just quick collapse softbox, very similar to the one that I have demoed on my channel before. It makes it very easy to use. Quick setup, you're just ready to go. When you're done, you just collapse it and you don't have to pull the prongs out. And these comes in like the parabolic, the softbox, the octabox. So there's so many different ways of using these. And the fact that they're actually now jumping into this technology, I think is going to be very interesting because now you can get the softbox from the brand that you want. But nonetheless, I mean, like I have been using SMDV in my studio, and these are still the one that I'm using. But that's one of the big trends that I'm noticing right now is that many of them are now going with these kind of quick collapse, quick setup softbox. So I also got a chance to play around with Blackmagic in their immersive camera, the Ursa Cine Immersive, and I'll have a separate video talking about that. In fact, probably online right now. I'll leave a link in the description. You can check it out. But I'm also seeing their new camera as well, which I believe is a Pixie. I'm not going to go into detail. You can see some of the B-rolls of the camera. There's other channels that talk about that in more detail than I can, but it's just kind of nice to geek out on new technology, right? A couple of other companies that I have a conversation with, one of them is Point Source, and what they do is lavalier mic, but what they have done is something different. So they have their new Embrace mic, which is supposed to be something, this silicone part or plastic silicone part that goes over the ears, and the mic just come out right there, and you can have like 3 different colors, so it matches better with skin tone. So I don't have to have this sticking out on my clothing like this. I think it's really interesting. I think it's even more interesting when you have to put a lav mic on a female presenter, right? So you don't have to like, here's the mic, I need you to go in and put the mic or lav it down or whatever, or, you know, do it up your collar or something. With that, you can just clip it on their ear. It's pretty much almost invisible. If I turn my face this way, it's like you don't really see it. And I can have the pack going down my back. So hopefully I'll get one of those in to do some review. I want to see how the sound quality of that mic is. There's no slow-mo camera there beside one company. That company is called Pixboom. They are a new company. And in fact, they just have the camera there. Some of them are just the outer shell without any of the internal mechanism, but they also have a camera showing live demos too of just like someone throwing the dice, and everything is in super slow motion. I believe it's like 1200 frame per second or something like that. That to me is really cool. And I think the price point that they're bringing their camera into the market is also lower than the more established brands out there. It's still an expensive camera, but that is a really sick camera to have to be able to film in slow motion, because most of the time our camera is like what, 120, maybe like 240 frames per second at the max. Those can do much higher frame rate. Lastly, I want to talk about the other brand that has been making these anamorphic lens for APS-C camera that has autofocusing is Blazar. And amazingly enough, I just found out that they're pretty much in the city next to the city I live in. That's really cool. But anyway, I got a chance to see their Apex 35mm and 50mm t1.8 autofocus lens. Got it mounted on my camera. It's actually pretty neat. I do like the look of it being a little bit wider on the side and everything, and being able to capture the scene a little bit more cinematic. Lastly, they also have showed one of their prototype lenses. This is called their Blazar Beetle. It's a 45mm anamorphic full frame pancake lens. And what's really interesting about that lens is it's pretty much meant to be a manual focus lens that you can just take anywhere with you. It doesn't stick out too much from the camera, even though it sticks more than a pancake, but it's still an anamorphic lens, so it's fairly small and compact. But what I really like about that, there's a button on the side, so if you ever need to do portrait, you can just press that button, rotate the lens, and now you don't have this weird stretch when you try to turn the camera vertical, right? So now you can do vertical footage with an anamorphic lens. That to me is really cool. So those are some of the technologies, those are some of the things that I have seen at NAB 2025. I also got a chance to tour a Canon booth, look around on Nikon booth a little bit, walk around on Sony booth. Not a lot of new products coming by ways of those companies, especially in the realm of the more consumer or more the prosumer areas like we are. And the high-end production, yes, there are high-end broadcast camera, high-end like box lenses and everything. But anyway, you get to see some of the products that I have to see that I am sharing with you right now. If you have any questions or comment, leave them below. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you're new. I'm Art, and I thank you for your time.